Good morning and happy Wednesday, January the 17th. It is cold and frigid outside, but it is a nice 65, warm and cozy here in the MSN studios in Shelby Township. My name's Jonathan Turner, and we're excited to bring you the second edition of MSN Live here this morning at 10 a.m. Eastern. Coming up on today's show, we'll talk about all the great things happening across the great state of Michigan as it relates to soccer as well as football. We'll get into that, along with, whether leagues are handcuffing teams and players with the league's rules that they have for those competitions. We'll talk about whether or not club versus high school soccer, where should you consider playing. We'll also get into whether or not referee accountability at all levels is needed in the game of soccer in this country. We'll talk about that and much more right here on MSN Live. Blackbird will take a shot, and that one White Sox got a left-footed banger. He shoots it! It's in!
McAllister with the big swing! Terminates out of the right.
Now Carnival will put it back in for Baccarat, and there goes it!
Benjamin Daniels gets the carry and bounces it out to the right side. He's inside the top.
But then for Vlasma! For Sammy Wise off the crossbar. Battle! Out comes Etheridge! Another big... This is a shot from distance. Let's see if that was. Hello, everybody, and welcome into our MSN studios here in Shelby Township, Michigan. My name's Jonathan Turner. It is MSN Live. It is episode number 2. It is cold outside here in Michigan. It's like my wife and I were talking here last week, and just like anything else, the weather came in with a vengeance. We were nice and not cold, but not freezing like this last week. We obviously got snow here on Friday, on Saturday, and it's been brutal the last 4 or 5 days. Lost power at home on Friday and Saturday. But either way, it is cold, but it is warm and cozy here in our studios in Shelby Township, Michigan. First time stopping by here on the MSN Live or YouTube, hit that subscribe button, like us, share this with your friends and family. We appreciate all of your support. All of our sponsors are down below. Take a look at them and see what they have to offer. We'll continue to be adding more sponsors here, not only to the show, but our network throughout 2024. But let's talk about what's on tap here today, specifically in regards to this show. It is the 17th of January. A lot's happened here in the last week, not only in regards to soccer, but also in regards to football. We'll get into that. I'm obviously wearing my Lions gear here once again. We'll get into our fast break here. These are our segments that you're going to start to see each and every week when we bring this show to you live every single Wednesday. But we'll have first up fast break. We'll hit some quick hits in regards to what's happening around the game of soccer here in Michigan. We'll also get into whether or not teams are handcuffed, players are handcuffed. When I use that word handcuffed, I use it loosely. I don't mean it, obviously, realistically, it is all theoretical, of course. But are they being handcuffed with the rules that are currently out there? Does it make it harder for them to compete and to get players to play with them on a regular basis? You should play for your club or you should play for your school? Simple question, right? We'll have some statistics and some information about that. Referee accountability. It's a big question mark, obviously, in the NFL. We've seen it in the MLS, in La Liga, across in the EPL. This question has been asked. But do we need to have accountability at the lower levels? We'll talk about that this morning. And then, at the end of this, we'll talk about what's coming up here later this week. Also talk about the Detroit Lions and their matchup against the Buccaneers. So we'll get into that here this morning. But first up, let's talk about fast break here this morning and what's happened here over the last couple of days here in Michigan. Let's first off talk about Celia Gaynor. This past week, a Michigan State graduate who helped lead her team to Big Ten titles in consecutive years was drafted 45th overall in the 2024 draft here. That draft taking place in Anaheim, California during the United Soccer Coaches Convention. But again, helped her team first ever appearance in the third round of the NCAA tournament. Again, 45th pick, fourth round, third player selected in the fourth round, part of Jeff Hostler's side there. She is one of three alumni who have gone on now to be drafted into the NWSL. Lauren Cazell last year, along with Lauren DeBow, who were both drafted by the Portland Thorns, and then Ava Cook was drafted by the Red Stars last year. In Gaynor's 2 seasons with the Spartans, she amassed over 42 starts, 43 total appearances, and tallied up 5 goals and 2 assists. She also excelled in the midfield position in her first season, but found her calling as a leader in the back line this past season. She's on all Big Ten first team and a spot on the United Soccer Coaches All-North Region third team. The Chicago Red Stars finished the 2023 campaign 24 points in 22 games with a 7-12-3 record, good for 12th in the league. So we'll be excited to see what Celia Gaynor does this upcoming season for the Chicago Red Stars. So that's what's happened in regards to that. Let's talk about Paul Doro for a second. Paul Doro, if you don't know, is the assistant coach for the Oakland University Golden Grizzlies. We've had Eric Pogue here on the network before. I'm a staff broadcaster at Oakland University, but he's also the head coach of the Flint City Bucks in USL League 2. Doro has been a member of Oakland since 2016, but he was just selected as College Soccer News' top assistant coach here for 2023. This is not his first time getting this award. He's actually received this award a total of 3 times now. But again, he led the USL Flint City Bucks this past season in 2023 to a national semifinal game where they lost to eventual winner in Ballard FC. So congratulations to Paul Doro and the Golden Grizzlies on his this awesome news that he has been named as a top soccer assistant by College Soccer News. Let's now talk here about what's happened here recently. Aaron Roy's been on the network here before. Aaron Roy is the head coach and owner of Women's Corktown Football Club, which was a part of the Super League here last year. They won that league along with the Michigan Premier League as well as the Premier League Cup. And in their discussions this past season, the team decided that it was time for a change, something more competitive. And they've decided to step into the Women's Premier Soccer League, the WPSL, which has not had a team since the Detroit Sun, I believe, back here a couple years back, headed up by Aaron Bird. And so they're joining the Cleveland, Erie Conference, which one of the best teams in the country is the Cleveland Ambassadors. So they'll be playing in that conference this upcoming season. It's a huge step for the organization. They'll play all their games at the Corner Ballpark. Some key players coming back here in 2024. Italia Gemelli from the University of Alabama, Victoria Miller from Ohio State University. The Ohio State University. Lauren Bowes from former Oakland University player. Haley Lewis, Bowling Green goalkeeper. Karina Medina, a Colombian transfer from FC Miami City, USLW. Keena Smith from Purdue University, and Abby Lodato from Detroit Mercy. So they will be playing in Corktown this upcoming summer at the Corner Ballpark. We've had a chance to call many games there. It is a fantastic place to play soccer as well as play baseball. It is the former home of the Detroit Tigers. So very, very cool there for them to be joining the WPSL for this upcoming season. Hey, let's talk about this. We can't. I'm wearing it today. On Sunday night, I will remember for the rest of my life where I was. It's very similar to all the other things that you experience that are good in your life. But if you're from Michigan and from the Detroit area, and maybe in some cases the Toledo area, because Detroit would be the closest team for those in Windsor and as well as in Ohio. So for them, they might as well. But the Detroit Lions, there's been no debate about how terrible the Lions have been for a very, very long time. And this past weekend, the Lions got one more thing over that one hump, right? I think that last eluding hump that they've had to overcome here in regards to that same old Lions conversation, right? They've had to overcome a lot of things. They've had to overcome 0-16 seasons, overcome many coaches coming and going, many players coming and going who we thought could turn the tide for the Lions. But this past weekend, they were able to get that elusive playoff win here over the Los Angeles Rams, doing so against their former quarterback in Matthew Stafford, who I have the utmost respect for. I thought Matthew Stafford, while he was here for the Detroit Lions, did a fantastic job. Obviously, he wasn't able to win games for us, the important games, which in this case would be a playoff game. But sometimes a change of scenery can make those things happen, which led to him winning a Super Bowl in 2021. But this past season, hey, the Detroit Lions under Jared Goff have done tremendous things. They went 12-5 in the regular season. They won the division for the first time in their history in the NFC North, and obviously now winning their first playoff game in over 32 years. Their first playoff win since January the 5th, 1992. So congratulations to the Detroit Lions. They will be taking on the Tampa Bay Buccaneers here on Sunday at 3 p.m. I believe on NBC. So, but we'll be excited about that because that game is going to be unbelievable. So those are your fast breaks here this morning. It's 10:11, and we're going to hop now into whether or not teams are handcuffed by the rules and the rules and competition type policies within these leagues. And I'll be the first one to tell you because we cover a lot of these leagues. We cover the UWS. We've covered, the Super League. We've covered women. We've not covered Women's Premier Soccer League, but we've covered the USLW. We've covered a lot of these leagues. And I'll tell you, the reality is that there are a lot, and I mean a lot, of competition rules that I think are handcuffing these teams, these players. I'll give you a perfect example. Forcing teams to have to stream games, like forcing them to have to stream games and then fining them. I don't think people realize how hard it is to stream a game. We do it professionally, right? I do it day in and day out, night in, night out, a lot. We did 300 of them this year. It is not an easy process to stream games. The VOs out there that promise, you can stream live. Right, those VOs are great if you have internet, if you have reliable internet. I mean, if you watch a VO or watch a Huddle or a Pixel or watch any one of those AI cameras, excuse me, tell me if when you watch a game, if it's easy to watch. They're great coaching tools, but from a live streaming standpoint, they don't hit the same way that what we do hits. Not to be negative about VO, because again, all VO and the Huddles of the world, they all have their pluses and minuses, but the biggest minus for them is that they can't really do the live streaming the way that it can be done in other ways. So these teams are handcuffed. Teams are getting fined $50, $100 for not. Matter of fact, I had a coach once tell me that he would rather pay the fine. The fine was cheaper than streaming the game. Think about that for a second. The fine was cheaper than streaming the game. So, he'd rather pay the fine. That's insane. How about the amount of players that can be rostered, for game day? 20, 30, what is it? I understand the idea that you want to be able to manage rosters. Certain leagues require you to have put players registered 48 hours in advance. Sometimes you don't know where players are coming from 48 hours. I was just talking with a coach the other day about this. Like, I don't think the average college player knows what's going to happen in 48 hours. You know what I mean? That one thing they probably can commit to is sleeping. Maybe going out to the bar. But to commit to to play, I don't know if there's an actual way that's even possible majority of the time. Why have that policy? As long as they're registered on the platform prior to maybe on game day, what's the purpose? I understand that you're talking about semi-professional, right? I understand that you're talking about, this segue between the professional and the collegiate, right? But does that mean that players and teams have to suffer? There's fines associated with these rules. Can you bring players on the road with you? And again, we don't know every league rule. We don't know every rule as they are written. But the one thing I can tell you is that these rules are having an impact on the ability for these teams to run. How about league support? Where's the league support? Hey, the biggest gripe here in this area when it comes to men's soccer with the UPSL was that the UPSL did not have a good support system set up here in Michigan. So therefore, some people, some players got together and said, hey, let's create a new league. The Midwest Premier League was born. It was a direct correlation and a result of the UPSL not being what they wanted it to be. So, hey, we're going to create a new league. And what has that done here in Michigan? It's created a lot of parity in regards to the two leagues. The UPSL, if you look at the league nationally, is a pretty darn good league. It's got a $20,000 purse when you win the national championship. They give out 2 of those a year. There's not other leagues that really offer that here locally in Michigan, but the Midwest Premier League was created as a result of a lack of support. And now that league has grown pretty good here, enough so that, you can argue that both leagues, I think, are trying to compete against each other for the prize of the best teams. And that is something that these leagues are keeping an eye out on for. My message to the leagues are this. You don't want to make it hard for teams to want to come play. I want to make it as easy as possible. I'm in the sales game just like anybody else is. If you're managing a league, don't make it hard. Make it easy. I'm not saying easy enough that anyone can do it, but easy enough that the teams that you want, the quality level of team that you want to come in, they come in. And then you keep them, right? You don't want to lose teams. You want to keep them. We talk about some of the best teams in this area that have had great success. Let's talk about that. Lansing Common. Lansing Common is, if you're talking about from the semi-professional level, men's amateur soccer, Lansing Common at that level between USL and, I would say between USL and like the Michigan Premier, soccer, MPSL, they are the probably the best, most organized team in all of Michigan. I'd put them up against anybody. Okay. Hey, if you're talking about USL League 2, the Flint City Bucks have just been, the staple at that level between the PDL, USL League 2 for over 25 years. You're going to have another team within Michigan be around for that period of time for them to really take over that whole thing. Tell me I'm wrong. I'm okay being wrong. And by the way, if this is your first time stopping by, we encourage comments. So get your comments in. Let us know your thoughts. I'm curious to always know what your thoughts are about what we're talking about here on the network. But right now we're talking about whether or not leagues and teams are being handcuffed. Sorry, teams and players are being handcuffed by the league. And we're talking about right now teams that are well run. And one of those well run teams in USL League 2 is the Flint City Bucks. You've got other teams that have been around for a number of years, but they're just getting going. So they have to do more, I think, to prove themselves in that regard. But there are teams that are doing a good job. Lansing Common, I can't think of another team, that's more organized, has it all together than them with the fan base from top to bottom. They're the best. In Michigan, if we're talking about semi-professional, Flint City Bucks, Lansing Common. You start talking about successful teams, Detroit United in the UPSL. They've been the most consistently successful team in that league for a long time, making their way to playoffs and going into the round of 32 and 16 in the UPSL National Finals. They did that here recently. They lost to Columbus and the Crew back when they won the Great Lakes Midwest East Division. So that's another team. When we talk about not necessarily organized but just successful, that's them. And they found a recipe that works for them. And the recipe is, while there might be these rules out there, they follow the rules to the best of their ability, and they bring in players that they know are going to work well within their system. But leagues, you can't have rules that hold teams back, right? Like rules that don't make sense. I understand the need more than anybody about how it is important to stream, or how important it is to be able to, get video of a broadcast of a game. I understand that more than you can imagine, because that's what we do for a living. That's what our company does. We broadcast games. But to the level that we do it compared to the level that another person can do it, there's a lot of nuances that go into this. It costs money. To make things mandatory doesn't make a lot of sense. It just doesn't. It's 10:21. We're going to hop in now into our next segment, and this one is what I call the halftime break. And the reason I kind of wanted to follow this format where we talk about exactly what this is, which in my experience, soccer game, right? I mean, it's a soccer show. Why not kind of follow the same kind of imprint of what a soccer match would look like? So when we talk about this, and whether or not teams are handcuffed and things like that, we ask this question, at least, and this is, my perspective, is when we go into these segments, when we talk about these types of things, every week we're going to try and touch on topics that I think are going to be really, really important and really, really cool. And this next one is specifically in regards to club or school, right? Should you play for your club? Should you play for your high school? Now, it's different for both boys and girls. And the reason why I'm going to say that is because the landscape for college soccer has changed tremendously because of Title IX. Programs that were once here in Michigan and once across this country, they don't exist anymore. And rightfully so, women now have better opportunities when it comes to college soccer than men do. And we actually start talking and looking at the numbers. I'll give you a perfect example. Last year in 2022, 454,324 boys played high school soccer. Girls played 390,108 across the country. Okay. On the boys' side, 44,259 went on to play at college, playing college soccer, which is roughly 8%. On the girls' side, 44,046 went and play at college soccer. It's 10% of the overall high school girls players went on to play college soccer. I mean, there's 60,000 more men or boys playing high school soccer than girls. So, I mean, the math is in favor of the girls. And we can talk about that all day long, and that's a good thing to talk about. That's why the game is different for the girls than the boys. The academies for boys and the academies for girls, they're different. And when we start talking about club or school, I do think that it's important to specifically, talk about the fact that as I'm looking at my overall screens here for graphics, as I am my producer as well as the host of the show, we're gonna put that wrong button up there. I do apologize, but that was my bad. So looking at and I again put the wrong graphic on the screen, so that's on me. So oh boy, it is Wednesday and it's feeling like Monday. But when we talk about this club soccer versus high school, the reality is it's a family situation. It's a conversation you should be having with your friends and your family and your fellow teammates. It's obviously about goals, right? Goals are really, really important. What you're trying to accomplish as a player is really important to understand as you're going down this path about whether or not you should consider playing for your club or your high school. Obviously, money is a factor, right? Money's a factor. Not all of us have a lot of money. But if you start talking about the money side of it, it is very, very expensive. Matter of fact, high school soccer is oftentimes more affordable, right? You typically play against, obviously, other schools in your area, so that makes sense. But it's usually funded by the school and doesn't require players to pay fees. And if they do, they're typically not terrible. But if a player is playing club soccer, you're talking about $3,000 to $4,000 a year annually, plus travel, plus all the other costs associated with playing at the club level. Now, you start talking about playing at the academy on either the boys or girls side, the cost of travel is extreme. I mean, I know parents who are in the ECNL side, in the academy side, and we're talking tens of thousands of dollars a year in travel. Tens of thousands. I mean, you got one weekend you're going to Texas, the next you're going to North Carolina, the next you're going to California. To get out to California on a plane costs $600-700 on this. I mean, if you're flying like a Delta, if you're flying a Spirit Airlines, maybe it's a couple $100, but it's expensive. Nothing about that is cheap. So there's a cost associated with this. The cost has to be risk-reward for the parent. I know we have this conversation. I've had it before on this platform, talking about the realities of club soccer and the likelihood of your child playing at the next level. It's less than 1%. It's less than 1%. Of all high school girls soccer players in 2022, there are 390,000 of them. 44,000 went on to play at the next level. Now, that's 10% of 390,000 high school players. You start taking all the soccer players, all of them. And think about this for a second. 25 players are allowed on a high school girls soccer team. Same thing as the boys in Michigan for following the Michigan High School Athletic Association. You know, that's what that looks like. And, you know, you multiply that by however many teams are in the state of Michigan. Then there are players who don't make the cut. Keeping in mind that, you know, the top of the top player is going to go on and play at a high level. Doesn't always mean at the highest school, the next level, right? The top of the top. You know, your top 10% according to this poll. So, you know, what about the rest of them? There's a lot of players that don't make the team. How many players have we had to cut over the years that don't make it? But they started off as playing on their club team, and they want to go to their local high school, they don't make it. Every soccer player, when they start playing, you know, you start to go down this path where you're going to go. You're going to go play college. club. You're going to play high school. You're going to play on the recreational teams. Where are you going to end up? And all of these players don't necessarily know where they're going to go. And when you start talking about the parent involvement, that has a huge factor. Let's talk about level of play. High school soccer teams, right? They can vary widely in the skill. I can tell you that when I was at Birmingham Groves, that we probably had about 50% of our players had never played club soccer. Now, the value to me as a high school soccer coach is that with club soccer comes training, for a lot of those coaches, they're trained. They've gone through some form of a licensing class. They've gone through some form of training to be a coach. So that means that the players who are playing for them are getting better training than those if they went and played recreational soccer. And recreational soccer is like, playing for your city. You get like 5 or 6 games. You may practice once a week. Club, you're playing 2 or 3 games a week, and you're practicing 2 or 3 times a week. So there's, in the off season of high school. So that makes a difference when it comes to skill. Makes a tremendous difference when it comes to skill. So, there's a reason why some players don't want to go play at their high school. I mean, especially if you're talking about here in Metro Detroit, a lot of the players that play, a lot of the schools here, they're pretty good. It's a competitive battle. You start talking about the OAA Red, you start talking about the KLA, you start talking about Macomb, the MAC Red. These different high school leagues in the area, the teams are pretty good. They're pretty darn good. But you start getting out to the sticks, maybe you start getting out, going north, going maybe the middle of the state. Maybe there's not as good of a school. So if you're playing for a competitive club team that plays all year round, it might make sense for you to stick around and play on your club team and not go play for that weaker team. That's a real thing. I mean, I can't tell you how many players have not played or opted not to play for their high school because of the quality of coaching, the quality of skill that they'd be playing with or against at that level. And college coaches all across this country, if you've been recruited and signed, will say, hey, mate, you shouldn't do this. Hey, having pride for your school, right? There's a reason why a lot of seniors want to come back and play, their senior year. There's a reason why. It's because they want to wear their that logo. They want to go out there and play in that environment. The high school environment is nowhere close to the club environment. I've been to a lot, unless you start getting into national championships where, but even then, you're talking about traveling all across the country. You're not going to have a ton of fans there. You're just not. So, playing for your school, wearing that logo, wearing, that uniform, being with your friends who you go to school with every single day, there's something about that. The pride. The camaraderie that comes with playing for your high school. Now, there's an argument about college coaches will be coming to, your high school games. And the reality is, with the way club soccer is in this country, with showcase tournaments and with, all these different ID camps, it's changed. It's changed. With the transfer portal, to be fair, I'm not even sure why college coaches are even going out anymore. I mean, I understand why you still need to, but I do think that that's going to change dramatically. I don't think that the scouting departments at these colleges and these universities are going to be sending people out anymore to at the level that they were to showcases and to, ID camps and or, whatever else. I think that we're going to see a lot less of that because the transfer portal is where the games now are won and lost. They're won and lost now. We just saw an article about this in regards to the transfer portal, how it's changing college soccer. It's already changed college football and basketball. So it's dramatically changing the game. So scouting. But to be fair, in 2024, you're your best advocate. So if you are at home, if you are playing soccer and your goal is to get to the next level, you are the one in control of your highlight reels. You are the one in control of pushing you to all the people out there that you want to see how you play. The things that are available today that weren't available when I was playing are unbelievable. Unbelievable. It's unbelievable. We start talking about advantages of club soccer. The year-round training is huge. That's what the academy was founded on. The academy was founded on in this country not to be this great competition portal, but to be a great training portal. They wanted it to be a place where players could train all the time together, get better at the game. Yes, have competitions to see and challenge and test how you're growing, but the goal was to create a place for players to train. That was the plan. This question just came in as someone said, what do you think about my cousin Nikola? Nikola is a phenomenal player. I had a chance to call him not only in high school at Sterling Heights Stevenson, but also this past summer with NISA. He played for the Michigan Stars, one of the youngest players to do that. He scored, I don't think he scored just one. He scored 2 goals, I believe, against Gold Star. If not, I think it was 2 goals. So he had not gone and scored any and scored 2 in one game. He's a phenomenal athlete, and obviously he's young. He's got a lot of experience to get under his belt. But I'll tell you, I'm super impressed with that kid. He's a strong player. And, the Michigan Stars, they got a good one. And if they can keep him healthy and keep him, I would say that, the most important thing for him specifically is composure. And that comes with experience. Right, you got to be able to find a way to be composed, even when you're up against it all. We talk about, club soccer and the higher level of play. The question, the reality is it's a higher level of play. That's what you're going to get. I don't think there's any question about that. And again, when you start talking about the player who's playing, who wants to play at the next level, that's important for that player. That's important. You can't play high school and club at the same time. Now, there are players that will play in their, MLS Next or the Academy, ECNL, and their season ends right during the middle of a high school season, so therefore they might exit and go play. That's allowed. But you really can't play them at the same time. Most of these teams, these organizations do not want that. They want you committed to them, which I get. I get that 100%. But the reality is that, the goal is to get to the next level. You've got to be your own advocate. I don't care if you play for club or you play for high school, play for both. Be your own advocate. Because in 2024, if you want to go to college and play at the next level, it can be done. It might not be done the way you want. It might be the path you want. I mean, my suggestion to all players now is go play in an environment that gives you the opportunity in college to be a proving ground, and then you can go anywhere. Go anywhere. That's what I would tell you to do. Keeping in mind that, there's no right or wrong answer to whether you should play club or soccer. I think it all depends on what you're trying to accomplish. But if your goal is to get to college and play at the next level, my suggestion would be that you sit down with your family and figure out a plan. And then stick to it. That would be my suggestion for you and your family. But there's no right or wrong reason. There's no right or wrong answer. I know that when we've done our studies and talked about this, that there's not a significant difference between a player who wants to play at college if they play in high school or play for club. Makes a difference. I'll give you a perfect example. Lily Bosley. She played like all 4 years at Stony Creek. Missed soccer 2 years in a row. Plays for Michigan. She could have played club. She chose to play high school. Well, why did it work for her? Why did it work for her? Was she not being seen enough? Did she not have the right? And she won a state championship her senior year. So that's a perfect example of a player who didn't play club, played high school. And there are players that don't play high school, that play club, that have the exact same story. So it's all relative to your situation, and you have to take it for what it is. It is 10:38, and this next conversation we're going to dive into is specifically in regards to referee accountability. All right, we've seen it here firsthand here in painfully when it comes to the NFL here in Michigan. We've watched it time and time again, where mistakes by the referees are costing moments. I have a hard time saying costing games because even though, and you heard Dan Campbell talking about this after the Cowboys game, like there were 3 or 4 other plays that they had stopped that they win that game, right? We know that. And we know that there's a magnifying glass when things don't go a certain team's way, whether that be at the professional level or at the youth level. The first thing I'm going to say about referee accountability, I think that there's accountability can come in a lot of different ways. I think what fans, parents, coaches all want is responsibility, right? I think we live in a world, especially when it comes to sports, that right now, because of all the referees that are leaving the game, that it's hard to say, hey, responsibility and accountability should be something within their everyday refereeing, thing. Well, it's hard because you're trying to develop young referees so that one day they could be at the next level. And development comes in the form of mistakes. The only way you can truly grow, and someone said this the other day, is that you don't learn anything from success. You learn it all from failure. So young referees have to fail more than they succeed in order to grow, in order to go to the next level. I think what happens at the youth level, and this is my perspective, is the accountability and responsibility falls on the organization that manages those referees. They're the ones that have to be responsible. They're the ones that have to be accountable, not the referee. You start talking about where you're getting to the college level, the professional level, then of course that completely shifts. They both have to be responsible. They both have to be accountable. And I think the average sports fan, wants to see that responsibility and accountability, period. I don't think there's any questions about that. You know, and that's the thing that, as a former referee who refereed for 20 years, I wanted to take responsibility for my mistakes. I would walk up to a coach at halftime and be like, hey, yeah, I missed that. I'm sorry, I made a mistake. I screwed that one up. I said that. I would do that. So the fact that Brad Allen in the NFL didn't own the mistake doesn't surprise me. Shouldn't surprise you either. But if we talk about soccer specifically, with now VAR being a real thing, you know, we're going to see a lot more mistakes from referees leading to overturned calls, leading to things, because that's the way they're being trained now, right? Hey, hold the flag down. Hey, wait, be patient, and let's this thing play out and see what happens. We're seeing that now all over the place. Not just in soccer, but you see it in football, right? You used to have whistles being blown, when now let the play finish. If you have any doubt, let the play finish. We'll review it. That's the plot. That's the process. That's the way they want this to go. I don't blame them. And we have to separate MLS and USL Championship and the higher levels from that of a parent and watching their kid play in U8. What accountability are you looking for at U8? What kind of responsibility? And again, I say this to parents all the time, and it's an argument that I think that, you know, it's the same argument if you were being pulled over by a police officer and you're trying to tell them how to do their job. I have yet to, in my lifetime, in my short 42 years on this planet, ever see anyone really change their mind when they've said it, you know, they've made a decision. So, you know, we're just wasting our breath, and we're better off just being patient and then trying to find a solution to the problem. And in this case, at the youth level, it's giving referees the opportunity to make their mistake and do so in an environment which doesn't allow them to go, oh my gosh, I can't be here anymore. So accountability at the younger levels has to happen at the organizational level for whoever manages the referees. In Michigan, it's the Michigan Referee Committee, right? It's at the league, because a lot of times those be assigners too, right? Well, hey, the coach should have a conversation with the assigner about that referee and be like, hey, and the reality is you can't be like, I don't ever want to see that referee again. Like, that's not a thing. If you had a whole bunch of referees, you know, sitting around doing nothing, like when I was a caddy at Bloomfield Hills Country Club back when I was 13 years old, you know, waiting for my bag to be called. That's not the reality of the situation. There isn't there isn't like a whole bunch of referees just sitting around doing nothing. There are referees all over this country who have way more games on their plate than they should be having. There's not a surplus of referees, so you can't say that in 2024. Might have been able to say it in 2010, but not anymore. So, yes, should referees be held accountable? Of course. At the higher levels. Not at the youth level. Now, I should change that to, well, I guess it depends on the referee and you know, their experience and or age. You know, if you're talking about a U12, U13, U14, you know, girl or boy, I would argue that you should not be holding them accountable. I mean, they've just learned how to do this. But if you're talking about a referee who's been doing it for 30 years, maybe that's a different story. But I still think that we're treading dangerous waters when you start talking about holding referees accountable. Now, accountability from the assigner is a different story. I'm not talking about like coaches and leagues. I'm talking about, you know, you talk about accountability coming from an assigner, the person that manages that referee, and you know, hey, you know what? We're getting a lot of complaints. We got to find a solution to this, and that's the job of the assigner, to work with that referee. And if the referee can't figure it out, then maybe it's not right for the referee. There's nothing wrong with that. I come from the school of thought that you can either serve tables or you can't. There's not like a maybe in there, right? Not everyone on earth can go out and handle all the pressures associated with serving a table at a restaurant. It is a process that is not easy. Not easy at all. And if anyone out there thinks it is, well, you haven't done it before. It's not easy. It's very challenging, and even more so today than it's ever been before. Same thing is true with refereeing. Not everyone should be a referee. Not everyone has the ability to be a referee. So accountability can come in a lot of different ways, but I don't believe holding youth referees accountable is the answer. It's holding the organization that manages the referees is where the accountability should come from. If referees aren't getting better, train them more. Give them more opportunities to get better at the craft. And then when they get older and they get more experience, they got more games under their belt, accountability can start to be used in a way that helps guide the referee towards growing or towards leaving. It's really that simple. It's really that simple. Question coming in, or another comment coming in. How do you feel that he left soccer junior year to play professionally and also had 20 goals in high school for Stevenson? So what do you think about that? Well, here's the thing. I'm not a firm believer in players leaving, early from high school. I think that when it comes to the game, specifically soccer, I'm hard-pressed to think that there are players out there who are not older that could not provide the same, if not better, level of play than a 17-year-old kid. And that's not taking anything away from a Nikola, right? It's not. What I mean by that and what I'm saying by that is that, I think development can come from a lot of different places. And while I think that training with a team like the Michigan Stars will have tremendous benefit, especially when we start talking about boys playing amongst men, right? And girls playing amongst women, right? Those things will help develop you and challenge you, especially if you are not being tested or challenged at your current level, current environment. But with that being said, you have to go out there and produce. Otherwise, in today's world, at the professional level, you have to have success, you have to show results, you have to produce, and doing so will keep you in the mix. There are a lot of players that get drafted that never see the light of day in regards to a minute on a pitch. So the fact that he left his junior season of high school to go play, he gave up his ability to play college. He gave up his ability to play high school soccer ever again. So it's got to all work out for him. That's the one concern that I have when you take a player out of high school and put them in the professional ranks. So while I think it's great and he had some success this season, you hope that he continues to grow, he continues to excel, and hopefully he can have more success along the way. But he is a phenomenal player. There's no question about that. Not one question at all. So when it comes to accountability, I'm a firm believer that referees need to be held accountable. But at the same time, you've got to find the right level of where the accountability should be directed. And in this country, USL Championship, USL, MLS, USL Championship, MLS Next Pro, those levels, NWSL, USL League One, USL League Two, all those leagues, referees can be held accountable. You start getting down to youth, it becomes a slippery slope, and we're already losing referees at a huge clip. So why continue to put more pressure on them when it's hard enough to get them to cover games as it is? It is 10:49 a.m. here in Michigan. We are in the last 10 minutes of this show. If it's your first time stopping by and you haven't already done so, hit the subscribe button. Like us, share this with your friends and your family. We truly do appreciate that. We're getting close to wrapping this thing up here this morning. I mentioned here earlier that, the Detroit Lions, they won their first playoff game here this past Sunday. And it's crazy because, over the years, you watch you watch the Lions, and I, for someone that's watched the Lions my entire life, and I've been a Lions fan for a very long time, obviously. I went to Lions games as a kid, and now more, I don't really like going to the games per se now, not because I don't enjoy the environment, but I just rather sit at home and watch the big screen right in front of me and enjoy the game the way that I want to enjoy it. I understand that that's not everybody's cup of tea, but that's my cup of tea, and that's how I like to do this. I remember last year watching games that the Lions would have lost. Close games. When you come down to the end and, because the Lions over the last decade, well, they've been terrible, and not good. They've always found ways to be in the game. There aren't games that just blown out. There are games that got blown out, but let's be honest. They weren't like getting blown out of every game. They would be in the game. They'd find a way to kind of start off fast, and then they let these teams get back into it, and then they would lose. They'd come back. Matt Stafford would come back. He would throw a 90-yard, whatever bomb, and we get a touchdown last second, and then sure as crap, they get the ball back, and with 30 seconds left, and somehow they threw two passes, and they have a field goal from 64 yards out. We lose. Like, that's the Lions' MO. What was their MO for? I can't tell you how many decades. And it was so frustrating because, like, wow, like you have this hope. It's like this hope that you were going to win the game, that this was going to be the game that they win. And it wasn't. And then last year, right, they started off 0-6, and somehow they found a way to win and finishing 9-8 last year. My goodness. But we started seeing it last year, the way that they would win games, and that the mistakes that they would make to lose games started to shift. We started seeing that last year. And then this year, right, you see games that they would lose. The same old Lions, that's how they lose games right there. That's how it's done. That's how they would do it. So, from my perspective, I started seeing this shift last year, and maybe a couple times in 2021. But really, I started seeing it shift last year and shifted into this year. I mean, let's be honest here. The Lions and the Rams on Sunday night, they were up 24-23. They punt the ball away, right? And who here is not thinking that Matt Stafford and the Rams are going to go score some points? They only needed 2 points to win, right? To put it over the top. So a field goal would have won it for them. We found a way to stop them. They punted the ball toss. And then we had the ball with 4 minutes and some change to go. Who here wasn't thinking in their head at that moment that, oh God, we're in trouble? There probably wasn't a lot of you that wasn't thinking that way. You were all probably going, oh my gosh, we needed 2 first downs. Right, that play that that Jared Goff throws to Amon St. Brown, right? Get a first down. I mean, like that play, right? So, it to where we are now with the Lions. It's and now looking at what's coming up on the Sunday. We've got a team that we played earlier this season. We beat. Right before Baker Mayfield and the Buccaneers found a way to kind of turn things around, and they squeaked their way in with a 9-0 win over Carolina. 9-0, 3 field goals. But Baker Mayfield is having a resurgence, right? He's having a really, really good year. He threw 3 touchdowns against the Eagles on Monday night. So yeah, the Lions playing here on Sunday at 3 o'clock against the Buccaneers. And to be fair, I think we're going to see a lot of pundits, a lot of analysts who are going to say, hey, the Buccaneers are going to win this game. The Lions have gotten over the hump. They won their first playoff game in over 32 years. Now they have to get over another one. They have to do it again. They do it again. And that's a whole new message. As a Lions fan, am I content with how the season's gone? 100%. But the Lions have to, on Sunday, go take care of business, beat the Buccaneers, and make their way into an NFC Championship game. And I think for the first time in my lifetime, I'm rooting for the Packers come Sunday as well when they take on the 49ers. I'm rooting for that one as well. So yeah. So, I mean, hey, I'm excited about this weekend. I'm sure you are all as well. Just super excited about this weekend and about what's coming up here. I want to make a special an announcement that I haven't talked about yet, which is, in last year, we traveled down to Columbus. Michigan Soccer Network did. Me and Steve Bask went down there. We called the UPSL National Finals for the spring in 2022. We had a blast. Just being a part of that process. It was played at the historic Columbus Crew Stadium. Fantastic. This past summer, we traveled to Leesburg, Virginia, where we did the thing all over again. This time, Dan Stickrat and I traveled to Leesburg to cover those 4 games, the national championships on YouTube. Super excited. And coming up here on later this, not in like 2 weeks, I will be the play-by-play commentator for the national finals for the UPSL in Irvine, California. And I couldn't be more excited about that, traveling out there and being a part of that with those teams. The Columbus Crew have already punched their ticket into those national finals. I will be there on February the 1st through February the 4th, bringing you all that coverage with the UPSL. So super excited about that. That all happen here, coming up here in just a couple weeks. 2 weeks from tomorrow is where I leave for Irvine, California. But excited about that. It is 10:57. We're going to wrap this show up. It has been a blast here this morning. Don't forget, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already done so. And MSN Live will be back here next Wednesday here at 10 a.m. Eastern. Subscribe to us on all platforms at MI Soccer Network, on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok. But as always, my name is Jonathan Turner. You've been watching a presentation of the Michigan Soccer Network. And as always, we'll see you next time.